Hello, good morning. Welcome back to day 2 of the Infrastructure Group Conference for 2017. I hope everyone's well fed, well rested. There's not too many sore heads out there, and even the rain's clearing up now, so we can have a sunny day like yesterday. Just to, no, not right, sorry, we've got another great program for you today. Plenty of interesting sessions, lots of good content for you to take away. And to get us going this morning, we've got Josh Howlett from Jisc. Josh is the head of Trust and Identity, and if I could open the email, I could tell you what his bio should say. I can't. Josh manages a portfolio of products in Jisc to do with trust, identity and access management, and he is going to come and tell us about Jisc Liberate, which is a way of developing agile access management across the sector. So thank you, Josh.
Thank you very much. Right, good morning everyone. I'm here to talk about our new managed access management service, which is called Liberate. Liberate is a service that we'll be launching very shortly, and this service is really just to describe what the proposition is, what the offer is, the timelines, and so on and so forth. So, without further ado, what is the offer? The offer is very straightforward. Today, as I'm sure you're all aware, Jisc offers 3 primary access management services. The first is the UK Access Management Federation, which has been operating for about 11 years. Every higher education institution is a member of the federation, and about 90% of further education is also part of the federation. The other service is eduroam. Again, this should be a service that you'll all be very familiar with. That's a bit older. 13 and a half years ago we launched it. And that again features every single higher education institution and a growing number of further education institutions as well. The final service is Assent. This is a much more recent service. This is really focusing on the more niche requirements of research and e-infrastructure access. So things like high-performance computing clusters, scientific instruments, and so forth. Institutions also make extensive use of IP authenticated services. So canonically this would be journals and other content provided by publishers who often like to make their services available to fixed IP ranges. And taken by themselves, each of these different forms of access management are not necessarily that much of an overhead. But taken together, it does actually represent a fair amount of complexity. And the way in which you have to deal with this is really take each one individually. So it can require a lot of staff effort because you'll need expertise in perhaps a range of technical disciplines, for example. If you're buying a solution, because there are some solutions out there on the market already that address 1 or 2 of these access management services, that can cost you money. And it just adds to the overall complexity of delivery if you're having to think about, say a typical HE institution, 2 or 3 of these forms of access management. You're having to think about, provider X and then having some staff to do Y and so forth. Liberate plans to try and remove as much of that complexity as possible. It does that by providing institutions with a single way of taking advantage of all 4 forms of access management through a single point of connection and configuration. It's a cloud-based service, so there's essentially nothing to do locally. There is a little bit to do locally, and I'll talk about that shortly. But it's a cloud-based service that we've developed and is currently in AWS in Dublin, connected directly to Janet. So conceptually, the service is very simple. There's probably a laser pointer here, isn't there? But I can't. Yeah. So here on the right we have the 4 different forms of access management that I've spoken about already: eduroam, the Access Management Federation, Assent, and then your IP authenticated services. Now today, as I mentioned earlier, you're probably operating things like FreeRadius or Shibboleth to service these requirements, or buying a service from a provider such as EduServe and their Open Athens product. All of that can go away with Liberate. With Liberate, we provide all of the functionality centrally in our cloud-based platform. That platform then connects back over a secure VPN to your institutional Active Directory. It doesn't actually have to be an Active Directory. It can be any LDAP compliant directory. But Liberate just uses LDAP to authenticate your users and then to acquire any LDAP attributes about your users that might be required by these services. So as well as providing the technical functionality, we also offer a portal through which you're able to go in and make changes to the configuration, view reports, and other, access other service capabilities. One of the priorities of this service was to make adoption as simple as possible. So if you are interested in this service, the first thing we do is have a discussion between Jisc and yourselves as to which of those four components you might like to take. You can actually take 1, 2, 3, or all 4 components in any combination. So for example, if you're quite happy with operating FreeRadius for your own service, but you'd like to get rid of your Shibboleth identity provider, we can do that. It's mix and match. This is typically a 30-minute discussion. We then provide you with a VPN virtual machine, and this provides the endpoint that Liberate connects to. It provides a secure tunnel over which authentication of users can happen. Using the service portal, you then bind Liberate to your Active Directory so that it can then query it, authenticate users, obtain attributes, and so forth. And then once that's done, it's possible to use the service portal to configure attribute definitions, authorization policies, and the rest of it. So step 1, as I said, is typically a 30-minute discussion. Step 2, 3, 4 obviously varies. To date, our record working with an institution which was a greenfield site was 30 minutes, but they just happened to have the right people in the building at the right time. Generally speaking, we have to allow for perhaps 1 to 3 hours, something like that, to go through those steps. And that's it. We've tried to make this as simple as possible for institutions to adopt. It's also offered as a fully managed service, and I'll try and be clear about what we mean by that. What we mean is that we can, if you so choose, essentially do everything for you. So you can either go in and use the service portal yourselves and fiddle with the configuration yourselves, and because a lot of people like to do that, have complete control. Alternatively, you can just send us an email or pick up the phone and describe the outcome that you want, and then we do all of that work for you. So benefits. It's comprehensive. It's the only solution on the market that supports all 3 of Jisc's access management services and IP address authentication. Obviously, there are other providers out there that will address one of these components, but then that leaves you with the problem or the challenge of how you address the other services. This reduces the cost and effort of managing multiple solutions. It's a flexible and attractive tariff. I've mentioned before that you can subscribe to 1, 2, 3, or 4 of any of these components in any combination. I'll come to the tariff in a little bit more detail later, but the key thing here is that there are no hidden costs. It's a fixed price, annual subscription, and you get the whole service. Peace of mind. These are Jisc's own access management services, and Liberate is a platform that we have developed specifically to interoperate as smoothly as possible with our own services. So if you take this service from us, we can provide you with a complete end-to-end solution for these access management services. The platform, located in Dublin on AWS, is also resiliently connected to the Janet network. So it's very secure. And as a fully managed service, it means that you can free up scarce technical expertise within your organizations to focus on other tasks instead. So timelines, what we're doing, we've got a lot of functionality that's already existing, but also planned. And what we're doing is introducing the most requested components first, with the others to come later. In parallel to the production service, we're also operating a beta program, which gives institutions an opportunity to test the developing components as they come along at no cost. And this really provides us and yourselves, the beta program that is, with confidence that we're providing something that's absolutely fit for purpose and fits your requirements. So, since early this year, we've been operating a number of pilots. The early pilots were just around the Access Management Federation, so provision of access to things like journals and so forth. And the majority of the early pilots were actually UK public libraries. We're working with the UK public library sector to support their use of the Access Management Federation to provide digital content to library borrowers across the UK, and we've got more news about that later. From the 24th of July, we started the beta program, and there were these components within the beta program that we've been testing both with the libraries, but also with a number of HE and FE institutions, and there's probably some of you in this room who've been part of that beta. That's where we are today, and the production service starts on Monday, the 2nd of October. In the production service, from Monday, you'll be able to subscribe to the Access Management Federation identity provider, the home functionality for eduroam, and the home functionality for Assent. And the reason we prioritise these, like I said, these were the most requested components. At the start of next year, on the 2nd of January, we'll then move the components that will be in beta over the next few weeks and months into service. And then those components will also be available to you. So, on to the tariff. With the tariff, we wanted to try and make this as accessible and fairly priced as possible to the community. And the model that we've chosen is to use the Jisc collections banding. So to be clear, this isn't a service that is included within your Jisc subscription. It's one that you subscribe to separately. Every Jisc member is banded, so all of HE and FE. All of the funding councils are also banded, and also a variety of other research organisations as well have also been banded. So hopefully everyone in this room has been banded. The banding, critically, reflects an institution's ability to pay. And the reason we thought that this was the fairest way to do it is because other metrics, such as the number of FTE or so forth, might point to the size of your organisation, but it doesn't really necessarily give a strong indication of actually whether you can afford to take the service. And that is what we felt was most important, was to make this service as affordable as possible to institutions. Again, I've said this a few times already, but it's worth stressing. You can take any of these components in any combination. So if there's only one component you need, you can just take that one. If you want to take all four, then of course you can as well. It's also an all-inclusive price. This is important to stress because some of the other providers out there, there'll be a headline price to take the product initially, but then there'll be add-ons that you have to pay for, support charges, maintenance, and so forth. We have none of that. What you see is what you get. So, if you're curious, now might be a good time to see what your Jisc band is, if you're not sure what it is. But the tariff itself is structured in a fairly simple fashion. We have the Jisc banding on the left, with HE and FE institutions being banded 1 to 10 and A to J, with the best funded institutions up at the top and the least well-funded institutions down at the bottom. There is, roughly speaking, a normal distribution. So the majority of institutions sit within bands 5, 6, or E and F. These are then the 4 components that you can subscribe to, and then you can take, as I said before, any of these in any combination. It's an annual subscription, and this does not include VAT. So obviously you'll need to add 20% to that. All the services also not within the Jisc VAT sharing group. Are there any questions on the tariff? Just no? Okay, because I've got that we do frequently have some questions that come up over and over again. I thought I'll just work through these now, just in case they're in your minds. So one of the questions we get is that institutions find this an attractive offer, but there is a concern in the back of their minds that we might be increasing it in the future. So in other words, we've priced it to attract them in, and then in a year's time we'll increase the tariff. We won't be doing that. The price will not be changing. In fact, we'll be increasing new functionality at no increase of the tariff. Obviously, it costs money, and so institutions often request a trial, and we do and will be offering a trial. So you can take a month's trial of the service to kick the tyres and see what you make of it. Like I said, it's not a huge investment of time to just set it up for your institution, and we'll be very happy to bring you onto the trial if you're interested in doing that. Next question that we often get, are discounts available? Not in general. The reason for that is very simple. We have priced this as keenly as we can, so there really isn't a great deal of room to reduce the price. However, you'll notice there are some qualifications. So if you already are taking a service for something similar, and that you're interested in taking Liberate, or one of the components that's similar to the service that you're already taking, and that contract is expiring in a few months, what we will do is just extend the length of your trial until that contract ends. So you're not paying for the same functionality twice, and it gives you a nice, easy story to transition from one to the other. If you want to commit for longer than a year, we'll also look at some form of a discount. Jisc will be saving money if you do sign up for longer than a year, because there's obviously costs incurred in renegotiating, in fact just tearing down your instance, for example, if you chose not to take the service any longer. So if you do sign up for longer, then we will be able to offer you a small discount commensurate with that saving to us. Most importantly, if you have a real issue, a live issue at the moment with your access management services that's having an impact on your teaching and learning, we do want to help. So if, for example, you're having a budget squeeze or a key member of staff has left, please give us a call and we'll see what we can do to help. Again, a commonly asked question, I'm not a Jisc member, can I subscribe? Yes, we also have a tariff that's different from the tariff before. For non-Jisc members. That tariff is structured around FTE, because obviously not being Jisc members they won't be banded, but it's not as attractive an offer. Important to stress, Jisc members always get the best pricing. I'm pleased to announce ahead of the service launch on Monday that we have our first customer. Nottingham College will be starting on Monday, and it's quite an interesting backstory with Nottingham. It's a merger of 2 colleges, Central College Nottingham and New College Nottingham, And they had the situation where they had two shibboleth identity providers and they needed to sort of consolidate this infrastructure and so forth. When we said that we had this solution, then it was very attractive. They'd also been wanting to join eduroam for a long time, but had never had the time to think about it. And because this is just sort of something that they can just tick the box and get access to eduroam, they've also opted to take that. So Nottingham College is quite a large institution. It's a Band D, and they'll be paying £11,900 per annum to use the service. So if you're interested and you'd like more information to explore the service, a couple of options. The first is to talk to your account manager. I'm sure you know who they all are. Or you can email the service desk, which is liberate@jisc.ac.uk. Obviously I'll be around today, and also my colleague, Josh Fry, also from Jisc, will be available to sort of deal with any inquiries that you might have. What I'm not trying to do is sort of push, this is not meant to sort of rush people into adopting the service. I'm not trying to generate sort of the impression that there's a huge groundswell and we're going to be overcome with interest and you've got to get in there before we run out of capacity. What I'm trying to say in this point here is really, if, for example, you know that you've got a contract with an existing provider that's expiring in 3 months and you need to transition at a particular date, or you've got some key staff leaving at a particular date, and it's important that you're scheduled, your onboarding is scheduled for a particular date, just let us know sooner rather than later. Because it is first come, first serve at the moment, and we're scheduling people in. So if you've got a particular date in mind that you might be interested in taking the service, please let us know sooner rather than later. And then it's, we should be able to guarantee the onboarding slot that you need. Okay, thank you very much, everyone. I hope you found that useful.
Thanks. Any questions for Josh? Session one over here. There's a mic coming.
So I was thinking as you were talking, this might be quite a good solution for maybe our friends in the NHS to collaborate with universities, particularly if we have services that they want to use, something like that. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yes, we're talking to some NHS trusts at the moment, particularly around that collaboration aspect. Their interest is mainly eduroam.
I was kind of more thinking shibboleth, actually.
Okay.
Particularly with regard to, and I guess the follow-up question really is a lot of us have a private federation that we run, that we put our own services into. Increasingly, we're trying to get suppliers to deliver solutions as service providers on shibboleth rather than doing the old LDAP thing. I'm assuming that this supports that.
Correct.
Yeah, and those are the kinds of services that our NHS collaborators might want to be using. So, but you're not seeing any of that kind of demand yet. But we should push such people your way, I guess.
Yes, please. Yeah. It's possible to put in arbitrary metadata through the service portal. So if you've got, internal services, for example, or other providers that aren't members of the federation, you can just slot them in through the service portal.
Okay, thank you.
Any more? No? Okay, thank you, Josh.
Thank you.